We are going to continue working on solving radical expressions. Quick reminder, there are three ways that we can simplify radicals. We can use a factor tree by splitting it apart. We can use a factor ladder, and we can use perfect squares by finding the largest perfect square and then taking that square root. So we're going to focus primarily on the factor tree and factor ladder. Again, we are going to use these key prime factors: 2, 3, 5, 7, and 11. We just start by breaking down using 2, and then when 2 stops working, we try 3. When 3 stops working, we try 5. All the way through 11. We generally, for the purpose of these problems, won't go larger than 11. So let's go ahead and start breaking down the square root of 48. I can use 2, and I'm taking 48 and saying 48 divided by 2, and that will give me my value here. The other way to think about it is 2 times what number makes 48. But that's a little bit more like guess and check. If you want like a straightforward way, we're going to say 48 divided by 2. I used 2 because 48 was even, so I knew I could use that. And that is 24. And now we can break 24 down using a 2. 2 and 12. 12 breaks down with 2 and 6. And 6 breaks down with 2 and 3. So now I have only prime factors listed. And if it helps, you can always, as you use up your factors, you could scratch them out. So like I used up 24 to make 12 and 2. I used up 12 to make 2 and 6. I used up 6 to make 2 and 3. And now we're only looking at our prime factors. So we are looking for groups of 2. So every time I find a pair of numbers that are the same, I can circle them. And one of those numbers gets caught. The other number makes it outside of the radical. So one of those numbers gets caught. And it doesn't matter if I use that one or this one. It's the same. There's 1, 2 value that's coming outside. And then my 3 is left inside the square root. So the last thing to do is multiply up. 2 times 2 is 4. Square root 3. Okay, let's break down 54. I'm going to keep using blue. So this is even, so I know 2 will work. And then we're dividing. So 54 divided by 2, which would give us 27. Now 27 will not break down with a 2. So let's see if 3 works. So we're doing 2, 3, 4. Sorry, not 4. I just started listing numbers. 2, 3, 5, 7, 11. So 2, we could only take 1, 2 out. Let's see if 3 works. So 27 divided by 3, that will work. It will give us 9. And 9 divided by 3, that does work. That's 3 and 3. So there are my prime factors. I'm looking for pairs. Now we can find a pair here. Those 3's go together. Or we can say these 3's go together. Or we could say that these 3's go together. As long as they're 2 of the same number, or they can be grouped together. I'm just going to go with these 2 bottom ones because they're next to each other. Actually, for the purpose of this, I'm going to use these 2. And I want you to see this 2 doesn't have a partner, doesn't have another 2. And this 3 doesn't have another 3. So of the ones that I circled together, one of them's coming outside. Of the 2 that I boxed, 2 and 3 are going back inside. And anything that goes like together with another number, it's multiplying back up. So when we had on the outside here, we had 2 and 2. Those multiplied back up. In here we have 2 and 3. Those multiply back up to leave us with 3 square root 6. Okay. Let's keep breaking these down. So now we're working with 96. I'm going to use a factor ladder on this just to be a little bit different. So 96 divided by 2, it's even, so I'm going to start using a 2. So 96 divided by 2, and that's going to leave us with 48. And then we're looking at it again. Can we divide by 2 again? It's even, so we can. So 48 divided by 2, and that's going to give us 24. Is that even? It is, so we can divide by 2 again, and we get 12. That's even, so we can divide by 2 again and get 6. And we can divide that by 2 again to get 3. I think I messed up where my 2's go. It was supposed to be here. So I think it was supposed to be 96 divided by 2 is 48. 48 divided by 2 is 24. 24 divided by 2 is 12. 12 divided by 2 is 6. And 6 divided by 2 is 3. So we have them all listed here. And now we're looking for groups of 2. So I have 1, 2, and then I'm going to box these. Those do not have partners, so they go back inside. And then we're just multiplying up. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 3 is 6. All right. So let's look at what happens if we have a number still on the outside. This 3 is still going to stay on the outside after we break down the 80, and it's just going to, whatever else comes outside with it is going to get multiplied to it. So I'm going to break down 80 using 2 and 40. Okay, so I broke down 80. If it helps, we can focus on our prime factors. So I have this 3 highlighted in green. I'm going to write it in green over here. We have a 3 waiting outside. As I find groups of pairs, they're going to multiply with that 3. And my 5 doesn't have a pair, so it stays inside. So then all of this gets multiplied back up. We can do 3 times 2 and get 6. And then 6 times 2 and get 12. And our square root 5 didn't really have anything that was multiplying with, so that's it. 12 square root 5. Okay, let's break down 28. So we'll start by dividing it by 2. It's even. We can break 14 down with a 2. And we can't break 7 down. So these are all prime factors. And remember that list that we were using: 2, 3, 5, 7, 11. All of our values, all of our prime factors should be one of these. So I have my 4 out front. Let's do that in green again. So this 4 is going to multiply with whatever pair I found, in this case a 2, and then square root 7 stays on the inside. So 4 times 2 is 8, square root 7. All right, this will be our last one. And so this one I'm going to use, instead of the ladder or the tree, I'm going to use perfect squares. If you see a problem that has a perfect square that's easily identifiable for you, go for it. Now think about this. The largest perfect square in 200 is 100 times 2. So when we're taking square roots, really when we're breaking these down, what we're saying is the square root of 100 times the square root of 2 makes the square root of 200. Well, the square root of 100 is 10. So the square root of 200, when we break it down, is 10 square root 2. Now, one thing we cannot forget about is this 5 that was out front. So if that 5 was there, that 5 is still here. That doesn't make it 510. That makes it 5 times 10. So my final answer is going to be 50 square root 2. All right, we'll continue working on this next week, but hopefully this was helpful and you feel like you are getting a little bit more comfortable seeing square roots get broken down, and especially being able to take out the pairs, and the idea that whatever ends up on the outside gets multiplied back together if there's multiple things. Whatever ends up on the inside gets multiplied back together if there are multiple things.